Kevin Park pushed his old cleaning cart through the empty hallway. The wheels made a squeaky sound that echoed off the metal walls. He had been working as a janitor at the Galactic Embassy station for 3 years now. 3 long years of cleaning floors, washing windows, and being invisible to everyone around him. The station was huge. It floated in space between 3 different star systems. Aliens from hundreds of worlds came here to talk, to make deals, and to solve problems. Important beings walked these halls every day. Ambassadors, generals, scientists, and leaders of entire planets passed by Kevin without ever looking at him. He was just a human. And humans were nothing special in the galaxy. Kevin's species had only discovered faster than light travel 50 years ago. Compared to other races who had been traveling the stars for thousands or even millions of years, humans were like babies. They had no special powers. They could not read minds like the Mentari. They could not live for centuries like the Draken. They could not survive in the vacuum of space like the Voidwalkers. Humans were small, weak, and short-lived. Most aliens thought of humans as curious little creatures. Amusing perhaps, but not important. Some aliens were kind to humans. Most simply ignored them. A few treated them with open disgust. Kevin had learned to accept his place. He cleaned the floors. He emptied the trash. He fixed broken lights and unclogged drains. He did his job well, and he stayed out of everyone's way. It was a lonely life, but it was honest work. Tonight, Kevin was cleaning the lower levels of the station. These corridors were old and forgotten. Important diplomats never came down here. Only maintenance workers and storage rooms existed in this part of the station. The lights were dim, and the air smelled like old metal and dust. Kevin liked it down here. It was quiet. He could hum old songs to himself without anyone telling him to be silent. He could take his time and think about home. He thought about Earth, about the small apartment where he grew up, about his grandmother who had raised him after his parents died. His grandmother had been a kind woman. She had worked hard her whole life cleaning houses for rich families. She always told Kevin that there was honor in honest work. She said that a person's worth was not measured by their job or their money, but by how they treated others. Kevin missed her very much. She had passed away 2 years ago, just before he took this job on the station. Sometimes late at night when he was alone in these corridors, he talked to her as if she could still hear him. He was thinking about her. Tonight when he heard a strange sound, it came from behind. A row of large waste containers at the end of corridor. 7B. The sound was soft, like a small animal breathing quickly. Kevin stopped his cart and listened. The sound came again, followed by a tiny whimper. Kevin's heart beat faster. He was not supposed to investigate strange things. The station had security officers for that. But something about the sound made him feel sad. It sounded scared. It sounded alone. He walked slowly toward the containers. His footsteps were soft on the metal floor. He did not want to frighten whatever was hiding there. When he looked behind the containers, Kevin's eyes went wide with surprise. A small creature was curled up in the corner. It was about the size of a large dog, but it was not a dog. It had scales that shimmered like silver in the dim light. 2 small wings were pressed tightly against its back. A long tail was wrapped around its body. Its head was tucked down, hiding its face. Kevin knew what this creature was. He had seen pictures in the station's information files. This was a Draken child. The Draken were one of the most powerful and ancient races in the galaxy. They looked like dragons from Earth's old stories. Adult Draken were massive and terrifying. They could grow as tall as buildings. They lived for thousands of years. They had powerful magic and technology that humans could not even begin to understand. The Draken Empire controlled hundreds of star systems, but this was just a baby. A little one scared and hiding in the garbage area of a forgotten corridor. Kevin knelt down very slowly. He made sure not to make any sudden movements. The little dragon lifted its head, and Kevin saw its face for the first time. It was beautiful. The scales on its face were delicate and fine, like tiny jewels. Its eyes were enormous and violet-colored, like two purple moons. But those eyes were filled with fear. And Kevin noticed something else. There were faint scars on the little dragon's throat, pale lines crossing the silver scales. The child opened its mouth as if to cry out, but no sound came. Its throat moved, its chest heaved, but there was only silence. The little dragon's eyes filled with tears of frustration and shame. Kevin understood. This child could not speak. He sat down on the cold floor, keeping a gentle distance. He did not try to touch the child or grab it. He just sat there, calm and quiet. "Hello there," Kevin said softly. His voice was warm and kind. "My name is Kevin. I work here. I clean the floors and fix things. I am not going to hurt you." The little dragon watched him with those huge violet eyes. It trembled but did not run away. Kevin reached into his pocket and pulled out his dinner. It was just a simple sandwich, wrapped in paper. Nothing fancy. He had made it himself that morning in his small room. He unwrapped the sandwich slowly and broke it in half. Then he placed one half on the floor between them, not too close to the child. "Are you hungry?" Kevin asked. "You can have some if you want. It is not very good, but it is food." The little dragon stared at the sandwich. Then it looked at Kevin, then back at the sandwich. Slowly, very slowly, it reached out with one small clawed hand and took the food. Kevin smiled. "There you go. Eat as much as you want." The child ate quickly, like it had not eaten in a long time. When it finished, it looked at Kevin with something new in its eyes. Not just fear. There was also curiosity now. And maybe, just maybe, a tiny bit of trust. Kevin pointed at himself. "Kevin," he said. Then he pointed at the little dragon with a questioning look. The child hesitated. Then it reached down and drew something in the dust on the floor. It was a pattern of dots, like a constellation of stars. Kevin nodded. "That is a beautiful name, but I cannot say it properly. Can I call you Star? Would that be okay?" The little dragon tilted its head. Then, slowly, it nodded. Kevin's single quotes as smile grew wider. "Hello, Star. It is very nice to meet you." And in that forgotten corridor, in the lowest level of a station full of powerful beings, a simple human janitor made his first real friend in 3 years. The days turned into weeks, and Kevin found himself looking forward to every evening shift. His work had not changed. He still pushed his squeaky cart through the hallways. He still cleaned floors and fixed broken things. He still remained invisible to the important beings who walked past him without a second glance. But now, everything felt different. Now, he had Star. Every night, Kevin would finish his work on the upper levels as quickly as he could. Then he would take his cart down to corridor 7B. And every night, Star would be there, waiting for him behind the same row of containers. The little dragon no longer hid when Kevin approached. Instead, she would peek out with those big violet eyes, her tail swishing back and forth with excitement. It reminded Kevin of a puppy waiting for its owner to come home. Kevin always brought extra food now. He packed 2 sandwiches instead of 1. He brought fruits and vegetables from the station's market. He even saved his credits to buy some sweet treats that he heard dragon children like. Star ate everything with enthusiasm. But Kevin noticed that she was not really starving. Her scales were healthy and shiny. Someone was taking care of her basic needs. She was not a homeless child living on the streets. She was hiding here by choice. Kevin wondered about that. Why would a dragon child hide in forgotten corridors? Where were her parents? Why was she alone every night? He found some answers by listening to the gossip of other workers. The station's cleaning. Staff talked a lot during their breaks. Kevin usually stayed quiet and listened. Most of the talk was boring stuff about schedules and difficult bosses. But one day, he heard two alien workers whispering about the Draken ambassador. Her name was Lady Hyone. She was one of the most powerful beings on the entire station. She had lived for over 8,000 years. She had seen empires rise and fall. She controlled the politics of dozens of star systems with just her words. Even other ambassadors were afraid of her. But Lady Hyone had a secret shame. Her daughter was born different. Among the Draken, communication was not just about words. They spoke with their minds, sending thoughts and feelings to each other. They also used complex sounds and songs that carried meaning across great distances. Their voices were their power. Lady Hyone's daughter was born without the ability to make sound. Something was wrong with her throat from birth. She could not speak, could not sing, could not communicate the way all Draken were supposed to. In a species that valued voice above all else, she was considered broken. The workers said Lady Hyone kept her daughter hidden. She was ashamed of having a defective child. She provided for the girl's physical needs, but kept her away from public view. The little dragon was raised by servants in private quarters, never allowed to interact with others. Kevin felt anger rise in his chest when he heard this. He thought about Star, about her scared eyes and trembling body. He thought about how she flinched at sudden movements, how she seemed surprised whenever he was kind to her. That night, Kevin sat with Star for a long time. He did not try to make her communicate. He just talked to her about anything and everything. He told her about Earth. He described the blue oceans and green forests. He told her about rain and snow and sunshine. He talked about birds that sang in the morning and crickets that chirped at night. He explained how humans lived in houses made of wood and stone, how children played in parks and went to schools. Star listened with wonder in her eyes. She had never been to any planet. She had lived her entire life on space stations, hidden away from the universe. Kevin taught her games. He showed her how to play rock, paper, scissors, using his hands to demonstrate. Star picked it up quickly, her small clawed hands forming the shapes. She could not laugh out loud, but her eyes sparkled with joy when she won. He drew tic-tac-toe boards on the floor, using cleaning solution that would dry without leaving marks. Star was very smart. After losing the first few games, she figured out the strategy. Soon, every game ended in a tie. Kevin sang to her. He sang old lullabies that his grandmother used to sing, Korean songs about the moon and stars, about rivers and mountains, about love and hope. His voice was not beautiful like a singer's voice. It was rough and simple. But Star loved it. She would close her eyes and sway gently, lost in the melody. One night, Kevin brought a small tablet. It was an old device, scratched and slow, but it worked well enough. He showed Star pictures of Earth, mountains covered in snow, cities glowing with lights at night, animals of all shapes and sizes, children playing and laughing. Star touched the screen gently, her claws careful not to scratch it. She pointed at things she wanted to know more about. Kevin explained everything with patience and enthusiasm. Then Star did something that surprised him. She pointed at herself, then at the pictures of children playing. Then she shook her head slowly, a deep sadness filling her violet eyes. Kevin understood. She was saying that she never got to play like those children. She never had friends. She never experienced joy like that. Kevin put down the tablet. He looked at Star with serious eyes. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "I know some people think there is something wrong with you, but I want you to know that those people are stupid. You are not broken. You are not less than anyone else. Your voice does not define your worth." Star stared at him. tears forming in her eyes. "You are brave," Kevin continued. "You are smart. You are kind. You have a beautiful heart. And anyone who cannot see that is blind." Star launched herself at Kevin, wrapping her small arms around him. Her wings fluttered against his back. Her tears soaked into his shirt. She could not say thank you, but Kevin felt her gratitude in every fiber of his being. He hugged her back gently. "It is okay," he whispered. "I am here. I am your friend. And I am not going anywhere." From that night on, Star stopped just waiting for Kevin. She started trying to communicate more actively. She drew pictures in the dust. She made gestures with her hands. She pointed at things and waited for Kevin to name them. And one night, she tried to speak. She opened her mouth and tried to make the sounds Kevin made. Her throat moved. Her chest expanded. But only a harsh, raspy whisper came out. It did not sound like words. It did not sound like anything. Star's eyes filled with shame and frustration. She turned away, covering her face with her wings. Kevin gently pulled her wings aside. He lifted her chin so she would look at him. "That was beautiful," he said with a warm smile. "That was the most beautiful sound I have ever heard. Try again tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day until you find your voice. I will be here to listen, no matter what. I promise." Star looked at him with wonder. No one had ever told her that before. No one had ever believed in her. In the shadows of the corridor, hidden behind a maintenance panel, a small camera recorded everything. And far above, in the diplomatic quarters, someone was watching. Lady Hane sat in her private chamber, her massive form coiled around herself. Her ancient eyes were fixed on the screen showing the camera feed. Her claws dug into the floor, leaving deep scratches in the metal. A human. A janitor. A nothing. He was touching her daughter. He was speaking to her daughter. He was making promises to her daughter. She should have him arrested. She should have him removed from the station. She should have him punished for daring to interact with her child without permission. But she did not move. Instead, she watched. And somewhere deep in her ancient heart, something stirred that she had not felt in a very long time. She watched her daughter smile. She watched her daughter hug someone. She watched her daughter try to speak. And Lady Hyena, the mighty ambassador who had seen civilizations fall, felt a single tear run down her scaled face. Lady Hyena had lived for 8,000 years. She had witnessed the birth of stars and the death of worlds. She had negotiated peace treaties between warring empires. She had survived assassination attempts, political betrayals, and the loss of everyone she had ever loved. Nothing in all those centuries had prepared her for this. Every night, she sat alone in her private chamber, watching the security feed from Corridor 7B. She told herself it was to protect her daughter. She told herself she was monitoring a potential threat. She told herself that the moment this human stepped out of line, she would destroy him. But deep down, she knew the truth. She was watching because she could not look away. The human was doing something impossible. He was reaching her daughter in ways that no one else ever had. Lady Hyena had tried everything to help. Star. She had brought the finest healers from across the galaxy. Draken medical masters had examined her daughter's throat with ancient techniques passed down for millions of years. Mentari telepaths had probed her mind, searching for blocks that might be preventing her from speaking. Scientists had offered experimental treatments and surgeries. Nothing had worked. The healers all said the same thing. Star's condition was physical. The parts of her throat that produced sound had never developed properly. There was no cure. She would never speak. Lady Hyena had accepted this truth with bitterness. She had stopped bringing healers. She had stopped hoping. Instead, she had focused on hiding her shame. A silent Draken was considered cursed. Other noble families whispered behind her back. Political enemies used her daughter's condition to mock her. Some even suggested that Lady HFY should have abandoned the child at birth, as was the ancient custom for defective offspring. Lady HFY had refused. Star was her daughter, her blood, her only child. She would never abandon her. But she could not bear to see the pity in others' eyes. So she kept Star hidden, protected from a galaxy that would only hurt her. But watching Kevin with her daughter, Lady HFY began to wonder if protection and hiding were the same thing. The human did not treat Star like she was broken. He did not look at her with pity or disgust. He looked at her with warmth and friendship. He talked to her like she was a normal person. He played games with her. He shared his food with her. He sang to her. He believed in her. Lady HFY watched Kevin's patience with fascination. He never grew frustrated when Star could not respond. He never showed disappointment when her attempts to speak failed. He just smiled and encouraged her to try again. The ambassador had never shown such patience. When Star was young, Lady HFY had spent hours trying to get her to speak. She had pushed and demanded and pleaded. When nothing worked, she had pulled away, unable to handle the constant disappointment. She had left Star's care to servants and focused on her political duties. She told herself it was for the best. She told herself she was too busy, too important, to spend time on hopeless causes. But watching Kevin, a simple janitor with nothing to offer except kindness, made her realize the truth. She had been afraid. Afraid of facing her daughter's condition. Afraid of the pain that came with hoping. Afraid of loving someone she might lose. Kevin was not afraid. Or if he was, he did not let his fear stop him. Weeks passed. Lady HFY continued to watch in secret. She saw her daughter change before her eyes. Star's posture straightened. She no longer cowered and hid. She looked up at Kevin with bright, eager eyes. She participated actively in their games. She tried to communicate with drawings and gestures, and she kept trying to speak. Every night, Star would attempt to make sounds. Every night, she would produce only harsh whispers and raspy breaths. Every night, Kevin would tell her she was doing wonderfully. Lady HFY noticed something the healers had never mentioned. Star's throat muscles were getting stronger. Her whispers were becoming more controlled. She was not making words yet, but she was learning to use her damaged voice in new ways. The human was not healing Star. He was teaching her to work with what she had instead of mourning what she lacked. Then came the night that changed everything. Kevin had brought his tablet again. He was showing Star videos of Earth's oceans. Whales were singing to each other across vast distances, their calls deep and haunting and beautiful. They talk with sound, Kevin explained. But their language is not like ours. They do not use words the way we do. They use music, feelings, emotions. Everyone thought for a long time that whales were not intelligent because they did not speak like humans. But they were wrong. Whales are very smart. They just communicate differently. Star watched the whales with wide eyes. She reached out and touched the screen as a mother whale sang to her baby. Maybe dragon voices are not the only way to communicate, Kevin said softly. Maybe there are other ways to be heard. You do not have to speak like everyone else, Star. You just have to find your own voice. Something sparked in Star's eyes. She straightened up and looked at Kevin with determination. She opened her mouth and tried again. This time, something was different. Instead of trying to form words, she tried to make a single note. Just one pure sound, like the whales in the video. Her throat strained. Her chest heaved. Her small body trembled with effort. And then, a sound came out. It was not a word. It was not speech. It was a single, clear, musical note. High and pure and beautiful, like a bell ringing in an empty hall. Star's eyes went wide with shock. She touched her throat as if she could not believe what had just happened. Kevin's face broke into the biggest smile Star had ever seen. Tears filled his eyes and rolled down his cheeks. He was crying, but he was also laughing. "You did it," he whispered. "Star, you did it. You made a sound. A real sound. It was beautiful. It was the most beautiful thing I have ever heard." Star made another note. This one was lower, like she was testing what she could do. Then another higher. Then a series of notes, almost like a tiny melody. She was not speaking, but she was singing. Kevin pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. "I knew you could do it. I knew it. I am so proud of you, Star. So proud." Star clung to him, her body shaking. She was crying too, but these were not sad tears. For the first time in her life, she had made herself heard. For the first time, she had found a piece of her voice in her chamber high above. Lady Hyena sat frozen before the screen. She watched her daughter make sounds for the first time. She watched her daughter smile with pure joy. She watched a human janitor weep with happiness because her child had finally broken through. The mighty ambassador, who had faced armies without flinching, broke down completely. She sobbed like she had not sobbed in thousands of years. Her massive body shook with emotion. She could no longer contain all the healers, all the technology, all the power and wealth of the Draken Empire. None of it had done what this human had done with nothing but patience, kindness, and belief. Lady Hyena looked at her clawed hands. These hands had signed treaties that ended wars. These hands had built and destroyed fortunes. These hands had never held her daughter the way that human held her now. Shame burned through her like fire. She had failed Star, not because she could not heal her condition, but because she had stopped trying to connect with her. She had hidden her daughter away, telling herself it was for protection, when really it was to avoid her own pain. The human had taught her daughter something that Lady Hyena had forgotten. That love was not about fixing someone. It was about accepting them and believing in them exactly as they were. Lady Hyena made a decision. She needed to meet this human. She needed to understand him. And maybe, just maybe, she needed to learn from him. But first, she had to find the courage to face everything she had done wrong. For the first time in millennia, the great ambassador felt small. Kevin woke up to the sound of someone knocking on his door. He rubbed his eyes and looked at the small clock beside his bed. It was very early in the morning. His shift did not start for several hours. He got up slowly, his bones aching from another long night of work. His room was tiny, barely big enough for a bed, a small table, and a storage box for his belongings. This was standard housing for human workers on the station. Nothing fancy, but it kept him warm and safe. The knocking came again, louder this time. Kevin opened the door and felt his heart stop. Two massive guards stood in the hallway. They were not Draken, but they were clearly from a warrior species. Each one was 7 feet tall with thick armor and weapons that hummed with energy. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but Kevin could feel their cold stares. Behind them stood a third figure. This one was smaller, wearing the formal robes of a diplomatic assistant. The assistant looked at Kevin with a mixture of pity and something that might have been respect. "Kevin Park?" The assistant asked. Kevin nodded, his throat suddenly dry. "You are summoned to appear before High Ambassador Lady Hyena." Immediately, Kevin's blood turned to ice. The ambassador, Star's mother. Someone had found out about their meetings. He was going to be arrested. Maybe worse. He thought about running, but where would he go? He was on a space station. There was nowhere to hide. And even if he could escape, what would happen to Star? Would she think he had abandoned her? Kevin took a deep breath. His grandmother had always told him to face his problems with dignity. Running away never solved anything. "Let me get dressed," he said quietly. The guards waited while Kevin put on his cleanest clothes. They were just his regular work clothes, patched and faded from years of use. He did not own anything fancy, but he made sure they were neat and clean. If he was going to face the most powerful being on the station, he would do it with his head held high. The walk to the diplomatic quarters took a long time. Kevin had never been to this part of the station before. The hallways here were wide and beautiful, decorated with art from 100 different worlds. The floors were made of polished stone that reflected the light. Everything screamed wealth and power. Kevin felt very small. They finally stopped before a massive door. It was made of some kind of dark metal, carved with symbols that Kevin did not recognize. The assistant pressed something on a panel, and the door slid open silently. The chamber beyond was enormous. The ceiling was so high that Kevin could barely see it. The walls were lined with strange plants and glowing crystals. In the center of the room was a raised platform covered with cushions and blankets, and on that platform was the largest creature Kevin had ever seen. Lady Hyena was magnificent and terrifying. In her true form, she was easily 40 feet long from nose to tail. Her scales were the color of midnight, but each one was dotted with tiny points of light, like stars in a dark sky. Her wings were folded against her back, each one large enough to cover a small building. Her eyes were ancient and golden, filled with intelligence and power that Kevin could not begin to understand. She looked at Kevin, and he felt like an ant standing before a mountain. "Leave us," Lady Hyena commanded. Her voice was deep and resonant, filling the entire chamber. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. The guards and assistant bowed and retreated. The massive door closed behind them. Kevin stood alone before the dragon. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Kevin forced himself to breathe. He forced himself not to run. He stood his ground, even though every instinct told him to flee. Finally, Lady Hyena spoke. "You touched my daughter." It was not a question. It was a statement. An accusation. Kevin swallowed hard. "Yes, you spoke to her. You spent time with her. You gave her food and showed her pictures of your world. Yes. You held her while she cried." Kevin's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes." Lady Hyena lowered her massive head until her golden eyes were level with Kevin's face. Each eye was larger than his entire body. Her breath was hot and smelled like smoke and ancient things. "Why?" she demanded. "You are a human, a janitor. You clean floors and empty garbage. You have nothing to gain from befriending my daughter. We offer you nothing. Your kind means nothing to the greater powers of this galaxy. So why did you do it?" Kevin felt anger rise in his chest. It pushed through his fear and gave him strength. He thought about Star, about her scared eyes that first night, about how she had never known kindness until a nobody janitor shared a sandwich with her. He looked directly into the ambassador's enormous eye. His voice was steady. She needed a friend. Lady Hyena blinked. Whatever answer she had expected, this was not it. "A friend," she repeated slowly. "Yes," Kevin said. She was alone and scared. She was hiding in the garbage area like she did not deserve to exist. No child should feel that way. I do not care who her parents are or how powerful her species is. She is just a little girl who needed someone to care about her. The ambassador's eyes narrowed. "You presume to judge how I raise my daughter?" "No," Kevin said firmly. "I do not know anything about your life or your reasons. But I know what I saw. I saw a child who flinched whenever I raised my hand because she expected to be hit. I saw a child who was shocked when I shared food with her because no one had ever done that before. I saw a child who thought she was worthless because she could not speak." Kevin took a step forward. It was foolish. It was dangerous. But he could not stop himself. I am nobody. You are right about that. I am just a human janitor who will be dead in 50 years while you will still be making treaties and ruling star systems. But where I come from, we have a saying. The measure of a person is not in what they gain. It is in what they give when they have almost nothing to offer. He paused, gathering his courage for what he was about to say next. Your daughter is not broken. She's not a shame. She is brilliant and kind and brave. She has more courage in her little claw than most people have in their entire bodies. And tonight, she sang. Not words, but music. She found her voice, not because of fancy technology or ancient magic, but because someone told her she was worth believing in. Kevin's eyes were wet now, but he did not care. You can punish me if you want. You can throw me off this station or lock me up or whatever else you want to do. But you cannot make me regret what I did. Loving that little girl was the best thing I have ever done in my worthless human life. Silence filled the chamber. Kevin waited for the hammer to fall. He waited for guards to rush in and drag him away. He waited for the dragon's fire to consume him. Instead, something unexpected happened. Lady Hyena closed her eyes. Her massive body trembled. A sound escaped her throat, deep and mournful and ancient. She was crying, the most powerful being on the station. The dragon who had lived for 8,000 years was weeping before a human janitor. I have failed her, Lady Hyena whispered. Her voice was no longer commanding. It was broken. I thought I was protecting her by hiding her away. I thought I was sparing her from the cruelty of others. But I was only hiding from my own fear, my own shame. She opened her eyes and looked at Kevin with something he had never expected to see. Gratitude. You did what I could not do, she said. You loved her without condition. You believed in her without limit. You gave her something that all my power and wealth could never provide. Lady Hyena lowered her head until it rested on the floor before Kevin. It was a gesture of respect. From a dragon ambassador to a human janitor. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for saving my daughter. Kevin did not know what to say. He stood there, tears running down his face as one of the oldest beings in the galaxy bowed before him. Finally, he spoke. Do not thank me. Just love her. That is all she ever wanted. That is all any child wants. Lady Hyena raised her head. For the first time since Kevin had entered the chamber, something like hope flickered in her golden eyes. Will you teach me? She asked. Will you show me how to be the mother she deserves? Kevin smiled through his tears. I would be honored. 3 months passed since that fateful meeting in Lady Hyena's chamber. 3 months of change. 3 months of healing. 3 months of miracles. Star no longer hid in corridor 7B. She lived openly with her mother now, in the grand diplomatic quarters where she belonged. But every evening, without fail, she would come down to find Kevin during his shift. Sometimes Lady Hyena would come too, shrinking herself to a more manageable size to fit in the corridors. The other workers did not know what to make of it. A high ambassador and her daughter spending time with a human janitor. It was unheard of. It was scandalous. It was wonderful. Star's singing grew stronger every day. She could not speak words like other draken, but she had developed her own language of music. Different notes meant different things. Different melodies expressed different emotions. Kevin learned to understand her songs. Lady Hyena did too, listening with patient devotion as her daughter taught her this new way of communicating. The healers were amazed. They said it should not be possible. Star's throat was physically unable to produce normal draken speech. But somehow, she had found another way. She had created something entirely new. Word spread across the station. The mute dragon child who had learned to sing, the human janitor who had taught her, the proud ambassador who had learned humility. It became a story that everyone whispered about in corners and discussed over meals. Then came the day of the Galactic Assembly. Every few years, representatives from all major species gathered to discuss matters of galactic importance. New laws were debated, old conflicts were addressed, and sometimes new species petitioned for full membership in the galactic community. This year, humanity was petitioning. Kevin watched the proceedings on a small screen in the maintenance break room. He had no right to attend the actual assembly. He was just a janitor. But he wanted to see what happened to his people. The assembly chamber was massive, filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Humans had sent their best diplomats, their finest speakers, their most impressive leaders. They stood before the assembly, small and nervous, making their case for why humanity deserved a place among the stars. It was not going well. Representative after representative spoke against humanity. They were too young, too primitive, too violent. Their history was filled with wars against their own kind. They had almost destroyed their own planet before learning to travel among the stars. What could such a species offer the galaxy? The human diplomats tried to argue back, but their words fell flat. They listed humanity's achievements in science and art and exploration. They spoke of human resilience and creativity. But the assembly members looked bored. They had heard such arguments before from dozens of other young species seeking membership. Nothing made humanity special. Kevin's heart sank as he watched. He thought about Earth. He thought about his grandmother. He thought about all the humans who dreamed of being part of something greater than themselves. Then something unexpected happened. Lady Hyena rose to speak. The entire assembly fell silent. When a Draken ambassador spoke, everyone listened. Lady Hyena was one of the oldest and most respected voices in the galaxy. Her opinion carried enormous weight. She stood at her full height, towering over everyone else in the chamber. Her scales gleamed with inner light. Her golden eyes swept across the assembly. "I wish to tell you a story," she said. Her voice echoed through the chamber, commanding attention. 3 months ago, my daughter was broken. Not physically, although she has a physical condition. She was broken in spirit. She had never known friendship. She had never known belief. She had never known that she was worthy of love. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Lady Hyena's daughter was not public knowledge. Many had heard rumors, but few knew the truth. I had given up on her, Lady Hyena continued, her voice heavy with shame. I, who have lived for 8,000 years. I, who have negotiated peace between warring empires. I could not figure out how to help my own child. So I hid her away and pretended the problem did not exist. She paused, letting her words sink in. Then a human found her. Not a human diplomat or scientist or leader. A janitor. A man who cleans floors for a living. A man who owns nothing of value and has no power to speak of. Lady Hyena's eyes found the camera that Kevin was watching through, as if she knew he was there. This human did what none of us could do. He sat with my daughter. He shared his food with her. He talked to her about his world. He taught her games. He sang her songs. And most importantly, he told her that she was not broken. He told her that she was worthy. He believed in her when no one else did. The ambassador turned to face the section where the human diplomat sat. Because of this human, my daughter found her voice. Not the voice that Draken are supposed to have. A new voice. A voice that is entirely her own. She sings now. Beautiful songs that I had never imagined possible. Lady Hyena stepped aside, and a smaller figure emerged from behind her. Star walked forward, wearing ceremonial robes that sparkled like a night sky. She looked out at the assembly with steady violet eyes. She was no longer the scared little creature hiding behind garbage containers. She stood tall and proud, and then she sang. The melody that filled the assembly chamber was unlike anything anyone had ever heard. It was high and pure and achingly beautiful. It wove through the air like living light, touching every heart in the room. Star sang of loneliness and fear. She sang of kindness and hope. She sang of a human who had given her everything by giving her nothing but love. When the song ended, the assembly was silent. Many representatives had tears in their eyes. Even species that did not normally cry were moved. Star spoke then. Her voice was rough and halting, each word a struggle. It had taken her weeks to learn these few sentences with Kevin's patient help. Human taught me I have worth. Human showed me kindness is strength. If this is what humanity offers, then they are greater than any of us. She looked up at her mother, exhausted but triumphant. Lady Hyena bent down and wrapped a wing around her daughter, holding her close. The vote was held immediately after unanimous for the first time in galactic history. A species was granted full membership with no opposition, not because of their technology or their military or their resources, because of a janitor who had shown kindness to a lonely child. Kevin watched the results flash across his screen. He sat frozen, unable to process what had just happened. His people were part of the galactic community now. Humanity had finally been accepted, and it was because of him. The door to the break room burst open. Star rushed in and threw herself at Kevin, singing a melody of pure joy. Lady Hyena followed, having to bend almost in half to fit through the doorway. Kevin caught Star and held her tight. He was crying again. He seemed to do that a lot lately. You did it, he whispered to her. You stood up in front of everyone and spoke. I am so proud of you. Star's song shifted, becoming softer, more personal. It was a song she had created just for Kevin. A song that said, thank you, and I love you, and you saved me, all at once. Lady Hyena watched them with warm eyes. She bent down until her massive head was close to Kevin. The assembly has voted to give you an honor, she said. The first human to receive the Star of Unity. It is the highest recognition that can be given to someone who has advanced peace and understanding between species. Kevin shook his head. I do not deserve that. I did not do anything special. I just treated her like a person. Lady Hyena smiled, revealing teeth the size of swords, but somehow the expression was gentle. That is exactly why you deserve it. Because you think kindness is not special. Because you believe everyone deserves respect and love. That is what makes humans remarkable, Kevin Park. Not your technology or your strength. Your stubborn belief that everyone matters. She nudged him gently with her snout. My daughter gave you a dragon name, by the way. She calls you Brightheart. It is a name reserved for those we consider family. Kevin looked at Star, who was still wrapped around him, singing softly. Family, he repeated. The word felt strange and wonderful on his tongue. He thought about his grandmother, who had taught him that worth was measured in kindness. He thought about his lonely years on the station, invisible to everyone around him. He thought about a scared little dragon hiding in a forgotten corridor, and he realized that his grandmother had been right all along. The measure of a person was not in what they gained. It was in what they gave when they had almost nothing to offer. Kevin Park, human janitor, smiled and hugged his family tight. Above them, the stars shone bright. And somewhere out there, humanity was taking its first steps into a larger universe. Welcome not for what they could do, but for who they were. All because one man had shared a sandwich with a lonely child. The end.